Watch out for the hole.
What hole? Watch out for the portable hole. Rock out to the portable hole. Watch out for the portable hole. Rock out to the portable hole.
Welcome to the Portable Hole Podcast. I'm Ryan George, and I'm here with my good friend Justin. Cynic is out for the weekend, or the week. But Justin, how's everything going?
Pretty good. I'm a little tired today because I made the drive back from Nashville, and I usually do it in 2 days, but it's just a long drive, and I'm not 23 anymore, so
Hey,
15 or 16 hours.
Okay.
Is just
Speaking of a long, okay, because I was going to ask you. Oh, so you may have gotten me beat. So how long was it? How long did you drive?
I'd go about halfway, so it's about 7 hours a day, between 6 and 7 hours, and you got to take a couple breaks and gas up and whatnot. So they're solid 8 to 9 hour travel days.
So I then maybe I do got you beat. So we went. So this is where we're recording this about a week and change after the eclipse. Now, did you see the eclipse at all? Did you get to see anything?
Yeah,
or?
you know what? It was so cloudy, we only got little bits and pieces of it.
Yeah.
So we saw when the clouds would just sort of pass over for a hot second, we would see it, and then the clouds would cover it up. So we only got little bits and pieces of it.
Okay, got it. So
I saw it though.
Okay, so my brother Sean and I we decided we wanted to go see the full eclipse, like full totality. So I booked an Airbnb a while back so the thing is, like, it's kind of hard because when you're making a decision on it, it's very much weather, like as you experienced, it's weather dependent. So you can kind of choose a location or a destination, but if the weather doesn't hold up, you're kind of screwed. So I picked like the Finger Lakes area, kind of upstate, so kind of central New York. And the idea was like, okay, we'll stay there. Worst case, we can always drive to Pennsylvania. We could drive, towards Vermont. We kind of do whatever we need to do. But as things were getting closer, it was looking like the weather was not going to be good in Finger Lakes. And so we were getting a little bit nervous. Like, okay, if the weather's not good there, where are we going to go? But then everywhere I was looking at that was within driving range was not good at all. So it was like the weather was just looking really bad basically everywhere. To the point where I remember we were gonna drive out there. So Anna and my wife decided, like, I'm done. I'm not going. I'm gonna stay home. She had an important meeting that next Tuesday. So Sean and I were on the phone. We were basically like, all right. So I was kind of like, okay, we could stay in New York and guarantee we see it, partial, right? Or we could risk going. So the forecast, everyone was looking cloudy, and I called Sean and I'm like, all right, what are we gonna do? And we're both kind of like, we're kind of 51% stay home, not see it. So we're like, all right, let's just talk in an hour and we'll make a final decision. So about to call him and just say, yeah, let's just stay here. I was also just for whatever reason not wanting to do the drive or whatever. And then I looked at the forecast again and I saw that in Vermont, like, while it was cloudy all day, I guess when I read further, it was like the clouds are higher clouds, and so it shouldn't affect your viewing of the eclipse. So then I thought, okay, maybe what we'll do is we'll drive up, we'll go up to Finger Lakes and then get up early and just drive to Vermont, basically, just go to Burlington. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we make the decision. Okay. We're going to drive out to Vermont and, we'll just figure it out. So we get up early. So we decide to drive. So I drive about 6 hours, not 6, maybe 5 hours to get out to where we stayed. Got there fairly late, but whatever. So we get up, we're like, all right, so then we decided instead of Vermont, it was going to go to Plattsburgh, because Plattsburgh is kind of like as far north and east as you can get pretty much in New York. The good thing about Plattsburgh is it was, the weather's the same as Vermont pretty much. It was a little bit closer, and it'll get, not only we get full totality, but we get like a good 4 minutes if we see it. So we're just like, all right, we're just going to get on the road, because I had no idea how much traffic we're going to hit. Sure. So basically, we're in central New York, and we're heading north and east. So we start going east towards kind of Albany. So everything's good until we get to Albany. Then we hit Albany, and all the traffic is coming up from the city. We meet that traffic. So what would have normally been about a 4.5 hour trip took us about 7 hours. But we made it to Plattsburgh just in time. And also my plan was like simple. We're going to find the closest rest stop and we're just going to stop there and that's it. Like, I don't care. I don't need scenery. I don't need a beach. I don't need anything. I just need a rest stop and some concrete to put my camera thing on. And we got it. We got really lucky. We got to a rest stop. It was, busy, but not crazy. We were able to find parking. I got some amazing pictures. If you check the Portable Hole Publishing Instagram, I got some really good pictures. And it was amazing. Like, it's one of those, it is like it's hard to describe it unless you see it in person. Like, even the pictures, which are really good, and I'm really happy with what I got. Like, it doesn't do justice to the experience of seeing it. So we got really lucky. We got to see the whole thing.
Portable hole.
Yeah, got to see a portable hole, which I think I texted in the group chat. It's pretty crazy. Almost to the point where like our logo is already like an eclipse, and I'm kind of like, I might play with some of my photos and change it out because I got some really good shots. So yeah, if you're listening and you're following us on Instagram, or if you don't, follow the Portable Hole Instagram. I got some good photos there, and I put a bunch on my personal Instagram as well. But so talking about driving, so I was 7 hours there. The drive back, which is normally 4.5 hours, it took me 9 hours to get back. So I was driving for 16 hours for that entire day. That was rough. It was kind of like that was me earning my eclipse, I guess, because it was a lot of driving, and I was running on fumes towards the end. Because I mean, the thing with something like that is, you can't really plan it because because that was the thing. Is like we got a hotel one place, but we weren't staying there. So it's like I couldn't get a hotel for the night ahead of time because I just didn't know where we were going to be. And then at that point, like they're all so expensive. So it's just like, all right, we're going to get on the road back, and
that's it.
It was worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm saying, so you have me about tied because I did drive to once from Nashville, this was years ago, all the way up to Westchester and then back to Manhattan. So that's about 16 hours.
Oh wow, yeah,
so,
okay, yeah.
But it's a lot easier when you're when you're 25. So
yeah, no, it was that was rough. I was running on fumes. I was getting tired. My knee was hurting me by the end of it, and it was a rough. Like I would not want to do that again. So next time it's like,
that's where those self-driving cars would really come in handy.
Yeah. Or like what we should have done is just like, I don't know, found a bar or something and just not a bar, but found a restaurant or something and just hang out until like 10, and then head on the road but who knows? Like traffic seemed like it was pretty rough the whole time.
There's nothing you could do.
But again, yeah, no, totally worth it. So anyway, I guess we'll get into, we got a few things to talk about, got a couple of reviews, and then I will be off to Guatemala coming up. Like a ton of travel. So anyway, all right, so let's get the first news story. So we talked about UFC 300 coming up, and your UFC.
Well, first thing before we get into before we get into that, I have something that I'm going to reveal because I got to keep people in suspense. Got something that I will reveal at the end of the show. So
okay.
I wonder if Ryan.
And this is relevant to me or listeners or everybody.
I think so, in one way or another.
Okay.
So
all right. Interesting.
I think Ryan's wondering what it is. Remember?
Yeah. There's a few.
I remember back in the day, like there was nothing I could keep a secret. If I had something that was like somewhat of a secret, Ryan wouldn't stop pestering me until I told him what it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm wondering what it is. I have a couple ideas. So I'm wondering if we'll see if my guesses are somewhere near it. So we'll see. All right. So anyway, first story. So UFC 300. Did you watch it?
Not live, but I saw some of the fights, and I watched through some of it.
It seems like it was I'm not as big of. It's funny, like we were both massive MMA fans. 10, 15 years ago. I don't follow it as closely anymore. I probably think Cynic probably knows way more than me, at least, definitely. And follows it a lot more religiously than I do, at least, and maybe you at this point. But it was a big card. Some big fights, and I guess we could just talk. The big, there was a big knockout, a couple big knockouts with Piera, who's got to be. He just looks like a monster, and had his like little meme moment. And then what were your thoughts on the Justin Gaethje fight?
Well, it was funny because I had a buddy of mine had a big parlay going, and he needed Gaethje to win, basically for him to win a lot of money. Now I know he was losing up until that part in the fight, but it would have been actually really funny had he been winning and then gets knocked out, with 1 second left. So
yeah,
but it was fun. Hey, look, Gaethje and Holloway are always going to put together an entertaining fight. That's just how they do it. Now with Pereira, I'm so the big question is how good. Not how good is he? We know he's fantastic, but is it a thin time in, say, in the light heavyweight division? Do you think it's a thin time, like as compared to, say, some years back when you had Jones, who was unstoppable, and Rashad and Lyoto, Shogun. Ooh, turn this off. So, do you think it's a thin time?
Yeah, I would tend to say, sorry. Yeah, I would tend to say that, yes, you don't have the, it's not the loaded division it was. Yeah, like you said, when you had Rashad and Rampage and Gustafsson and Jones and all these guys that were world beaters, so it feels like, it doesn't feel like there are world beaters in the the Machida. There was a period in that division in the heyday where you just had it was the best division in the sport, and you had the most dynamic fighters and arguably the most skilled and best fighters. And so I think we're at a point now where I don't think it's there. So that's going to be a little bit of the mark against him at this point is he's great, but how great is he? Does he beat a prime John Jones? Can he beat? Yeah.
Well, it's also not only because, look, everyone gets better, right? So the fighters are better today than they were 10 years ago.
Yeah.
The question is the relative talent, how talented everyone was 10 years ago, right? Is it that same level proportionally where, everything evolves. We know how good everyone has gotten. So is the or not necessarily the level, but is the competition, has he had to run through all those competitions? And he has some great wins. There's no question about it, but that's just what I'm wondering.
Yeah, no, I can agree. I think it's that's a challenge. It's he needs that big opponent, he needs the big win or that big opponent to really push him over the edge, at least at light heavyweight.
Middleweight, well, he had Israel, so
they could always do it again, but
they probably will.
Anyone, maybe. Who knows? I don't know if Israel does he have any fights coming up?
I don't know.
And then they announced Conor McGregor's return. At this point, you think it's just a cash grab?
It's a cash grab.
Any of his fights, is there I don't know that his heart's necessarily in it, but does he need the money? I don't know that he really needs the money. So why
I can't imagine that he does, but you never know what business dealings or what things are happening in someone's personal life. So
unless the UFC is just backing, at some level, there's maybe they're just backing up a bunch of money, and he's obviously he's a professional fighter. He's trained, and somebody who maybe he's just he's confident enough in himself that he can do it. But it seems a little weird. I don't know. I feel like that ship has sailed, but again, there's a lot of money maybe being left on the table. So, kind of not, I mean, obviously he's much younger and in better shape than Mike Tyson, but same kind of thing. It's maybe at some point you back up enough money and it's hard for him to turn it down. And I'm sure he's got pay-per-view points and all that stuff. So we'll see. I think that's going to be their big challenge is they were at some point not too long ago, they were building a lot of mainstream kind of stars and guys that were really becoming household names. And I don't know that it's really, they're doing quite that much anymore. There aren't many guys that are the average guy who maybe kind of, loosely follows, MMA would know who he is or know the names. Or even just people who don't know, they just know the name Conor McGregor. They're not doing that where they were doing that, a few years back.
Well, think about this. How many fighters now are Dagestan or
Yeah.
other European countries, and now that's good. We want the best talent from all over the world, so that's a good thing. You're having now there's a lot of Asian fighters that are coming in, right?
Yeah.
For an American audience, that's not easy if they're not characters who speak the language and promoted as such. So that could be a reason why it might be difficult for some of the American fans to know these fighters. And look, it's a good thing overall. We want the best talent, so we want everyone participating. But from a from an entertainment promotional standpoint, that is is a little. It is a little probably difficult for the UFC. They're probably wondering how do we market a lot of these guys.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is that right? Like if you're foreign, at least to be big in the U.S., you then need to have some kind of otherworldly talent or something that or speak in English. Be it from an English-speaking country, right? Like,
charismatic in some way.
Yeah, so it's like you've got to be like an Anderson Silva, whose skills are so unmatched that like. He didn't have to speak a word of English, and you were going to want to see him fight. And also just someone with that kind of charisma, like a Francis Ngannou, who again, otherworldly power, and built like a Greek god, like somebody that again, like his work kind of transcends the, not that he was perfectly fine speaking English, but just like for non-native speakers, it becomes a little bit more of a challenge to market unless they've got something behind them. Like Pereira's got, again, otherworldly power, great kickboxing talent, and maybe, is somebody who's kind of on that cusp. I feel like a couple more big wins, and he's somebody who can be like more of a household name if he's not already. Because I think, definitely a person that like casuals obviously know who he is, and but like the random person who maybe follows, watches one fight card a year may or may not know. But we'll see. All right, so let's go. So next thing, this happened, I guess, last week. OJ's dead. Any thoughts? I'll tell you where I can connect it to now.
Well, look, it was if you're of a certain age, like for like Ryan and I's age, we just remember that was the biggest story. And if you're also like Ryan and I, we were annoyed when they interrupted the playoff game to show OJ escaping. We're like, we don't care about this. The Knicks are locked in like a death battle with who was the Pacers?
Well, it was like that year. It was like they played the Bulls, then the Pacers, and then the Rockets. So yeah, it probably was the Pacers.
I think it was the Pacers,
and
it's like, well, all right, we OJ did it. We know it. It's just. He's running away. Okay, who cares? I want to watch the Knicks. Like that's what matters. Like so that's what comes to mind.
That's why to me it was funny. Like that was the last time the Knicks were pretty much the last time they were relevant.
Yeah, right? Well, they made the finals a little.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean,
we knew they were
a little bit facetious, but that was the last time they had a legitimate shot at winning a title. Not that they do this year necessarily, but they're pretty good. And so it's interesting the interesting time,
which actually, which is funny, sort of relative to that. I've been doing the fantasy baseball that Cynic got me into, and I'm not really much one for rooting for the Yankees, but they came through because they came back and won a game. They avoided getting swept, and they came a big ninth inning rally where they came back and won the game, and like they really helped me out. So like one guy got a big hit that really helped my score, and then their closer, who was one of my pitchers, also came in and locked it down. I was those points were really crucial. So I was like, yes, Yankees coming through for me.
That's how to get you to root for the Yankees is be on your
and my ace is Garrett Cole too, and he's injured. So once he comes back,
once he comes back, hopefully, that would be. So, yeah, they seem to be doing pretty well without their ace, which hopefully they keep things up. So anyway, so the only other story I had a few other things, but some stuff that I might save for the next week. But did you hear about the Rock's kind of anti-woke comments?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I'll talk about it because it's like and I feel like the Rock's he's annoying, because he's like, it's like. I feel like a lot of stuff he does is for, for publicity and to, and like I think he cares. It's weird. Like for a guy who came from pro wrestling, whose whole shtick was like he was the biggest heel. And even recently, like when he did, I don't know if, you weren't following much of the WrestleMania stuff, but lead up, but like, he initially was going to come in and fight in the main event, and then they pivoted when the fans kind of revolted, and then he went into the heel Rock persona for the last couple months, and he's been great because that's what he is. He's great as a heel, but then it's annoying that everything he does is like for publicity. It's like whether he's giving people money or giving away a house or whatever it is, it's like he clearly does this stuff for publicity. So anyway, and I'll get the quote out because it's annoying. So he was talking about endorsing Biden, and I guess he was being asked if he's going to endorse somebody again, and he said. The endorsement I made years ago with Biden was one that I thought was the best decision at the time. He said, I thought I'm in a position where I can have some influence. I felt it was my job to then exercise my influence and share. This is who I'm going to endorse. I'm not going to do it. And then he says, I'm not going to do that. I was then the most followed man in the world and am today, and I appreciate that. But what that caused was something that tears me up in my guts, which is division. That got me. I didn't realize then, and I just felt like there was a lot of unrest, and I'd like things to calm down. And this was from an interview, I believe it was with Variety, or at least the quote was from Variety. I'm not sure.
He went on Fox News as well.
And that's right. You're right. It's Fox News. Sorry. Yeah, I'm quoting from Variety. And then I'll just speaking of cancel culture, and then we can go into it. And he's like, again, today's cancel culture, woke culture, division, etc. That really bugs me. In the spirit of that, you either succumb to that and be what other people want you to be, or you be yourself and be real. And that might make people upset and piss you off, and that's okay. So he's contradicting himself because in one statement he's saying he's not going to make an endorsement because he doesn't want a division and I guess he doesn't want to deal with the consequences. And then he's saying he doesn't care about woke culture. It's like, make up your mind, because like the quote woke people aren't the ones that gave him a hard time for endorsing Biden. Yeah, right? Like, so it's just like, I don't know. It's like it's like. The real Rock has a huge stick up his ass, I think, and it's like, come on, whatever. Like, be like Reacher. I don't know if you've read any of the stuff. If you haven't, I won't get into that. I was almost going to add that as a story, but look up Alan Rickson's comments. He I admire that. Be like that guy. But yeah, what were you going to say?
So it's sort of interesting. Like his stuff wasn't really anti-woke. When it looks down, like he wasn't saying something like, "Oh, there's two genders," things like that.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
There's too much, but
DEI or whatever.
Yeah, but we view it as anti-woke because and it's so funny that you mentioned the division, because that's, as you mentioned, that's sort of exactly what you do. There is no, like when you say, "Oh, I thought it was," I endorsed Biden. But now saying something like I regret it, that's an endorsement for Trump, right? Any way you look at it, it's like, look, personally, I don't like Biden, right? And I don't like I don't like Biden and that sort of group of corporate Democrats. I feel they are corrupt in various ways, and I don't feel that they really care. But there's a division between that and Trump. When you when you say that, it's whether it is or not, and he might still vote for Biden, but whether you say that or not, it's an endorsement for Trump, and it will be perceived as that. And then the Trumpers will all jump on it and say, see, The Rock is is supporting us now. And the other thing is, when you mention, he did mention something that was sort of like, when you use the word woke, it is anti-woke. That is anti-woke. If you think about it, because look, we're not crazy. We know that any political party, any side can take things too far, and there are things that go too far on, say, the left with certain things, with certain politicians do for certain laws, maybe the way certain funds are allocated, things like that, or things in school boards, like things can go too far, and we get it. That's just the nature of life and of politics. But using the term woke now is exclusively used by the right, by Trumper type types to make a point. It's become it's a derogatory term. So when you use the term, the woke crowd, that is in and of itself anti-woke, right? Because who is the woke crowd? This mysterious group of people that doesn't really exist. Yeah, we know that there are people that are there are individuals that go way too far and stuff, but most people are not like that. And most people that even most people that are would identify as liberal are not crazy. They're not like the way that woke is pictured.
Well, I think at this point it's become like lazy. Like it's like the word you can use. It's like a pejorative and a word and a term you can use when you don't want to have a nuanced discussion about anything. And so it's effectively become meaningless. Like when people say it, it's just like there's no meaning to that. Like explain that and what does it mean? And so it just becomes like this catch-all term that people can just use for anything that they don't like. And often, to fight dealing with any consequences. And so it's, and so it becomes like, and I know people on the left that use it, more, but they tend to be more centrist on the left, but, obviously people on the right, but like, when you're talking about it, it's like, take each situation as it is and talk about it rather than just throwing out like, oh, it's woke or, cancel culture or whatever. And that's it. Like, because yes, there are situations where it's gone a little too far but generally it hasn't. And then by just saying that and throwing that word out again, it has no meaning. And then it's just like, for me, when I hear that immediately shuts me off. If someone's talking about something and they're like, if they don't like kind of explain what they mean by woke pretty early on, then it's like, all right, then you're just talking crap. Like you don't know what you're saying. Like you're saying woke because you have no other argument or you don't have a nuanced view. And so then it just becomes kind of ridiculous. And so it's like The Rock, with this, it's like he's kind of trying, as he always does, like I wish he'd just be heel Rock. You want to piss off, Trump people, piss them off. You want to piss off Biden people, piss them off. Like be The Rock, be divisive. Like but this kind of version of him that like needs adulation and needs people to, and was so pained by the division. It's kind of ridiculous. Like he just doesn't like being criticized. And like at the end of the day, you're gonna it's hard not to get criticized. I think if you're in the public eye, and I would think you just you deal with it and be true to yourself. As he said in some of that statement. But it is what it is. It's just like. It's annoying, but not unsurprising. All right, so we're gonna get to the first of two reviews. We'll start with what we've both seen, and then I'll finish up with Civil War. So the first thing we're talking about is Fallout. So you saw the first episode of Fallout, right?
Yep.
Okay, and I've seen 6. So for anybody listening to this, it'll be a little bit all over the place. Neither of us has seen the ending, and then maybe when we're back in a couple weeks with Cynic, we can all kind of get a post-mortem on it to talk about it. But I guess we'll start with and again, so we'll kind of go through our categories, and then I'll kind of give my context from what I've seen since I've seen further. But just to give a brief, so basically Fallout's a series based on a very popular video game, which I've never played. Did you play any of the Fallout games?
No. I think the video games have passed me by since from when that came out.
Yeah, so it's basically like the show itself. When it begins, I think it's in the 50s, in kind of an alternate reality where the tensions between us and the Reds, which I believe is the Russians, but I don't know. I don't know that they say that outright. But it's higher than it was in our real reality. Eventually leading to a nuclear war. Or at least we get bombed. I don't know exactly if there was much of a war, but when the show starts, it's a couple hundred years later, and there are people. We basically are introduced to people who are living in vaults that were built underneath the surface, and they have their own society. And in the first episode, basically, we have a group that's in a vault that is marrying off one of their own to a member of another vault. And it turns out that they're raiders, and murder and violence ensues. And then they kidnap the mother of Lucy, who is our kind of main character, the father of Lucy, who's our main character. And then she embarks on a quest to find him and figure out what's going on and who these people are that found him. And then in the middle of it, we've got a couple other characters. Cooper, who's a former actor turned into a ghoul and basically is like a standard kind of badass, Western bounty hunter.
Yeah.
And then we have Maximus, who's kind of a wannabe knight who can't seem to get out of his own way. So I guess I'll start off with story for you. Like, what are your thoughts so far on the story? I think after episode 1, a lot is up in the air, but any thoughts on kind of where things are, what's going on with the story so far?
I thought it was all extremely obvious, and like you could look, I don't mind when you could predict what's going to happen, but it just you just knew something was going to go wrong with this marriage. Like you knew something was funky was going to happen with this. You knew she was going to set out. You could just sort of sense where it just seemed very, very predictable right now. So maybe things will change. Very, very, very predictable. And then just we'll keep along that thread of predictability moving forward. So yeah, to me it's and everything. And then with the ghoul, like you just knew what was going to happen. You knew that he was going to have some say some cool catch lines and then kill them.
Yeah,
like it was just look, we get that some things are going to happen like that. It's just so predictable, and you could just sense when you can just sense that something is going to happen. It's just not as cool as when it hits you with a something a little unexpected.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I think that's fair. It's a fair point, but I do think episode 1 is predictable, but where I think, and again, obviously you have to get a little bit further into the show, where I think that it works is there's a lot of world building going on in this story, right? And that's one of the strengths of the story to me is it's built this entire world that feels real. It feels well thought out. It feels lived in. And we'll talk about the visuals too, like that. The visuals work. It really feels like a real world where it's not like there are bits and pieces, little details that they throw in that really make you feel like okay, they really put a lot of work into this. And so I think part of it also it's a complicated story. There's a lot going on, a lot of people, a lot of factions, a lot of groups to kind of figure out. And so I think for me, when it comes to storytelling like that, when you have so much to do, I think a lot of times it's better to like lean on the familiar early on, so right. Like, so it's like you're leaning on the familiar and tropes and things that you and I are going to expect, because that eases us into it, right? We're eased into the world because it's like we're not trying to, we're not spending the entire time trying to learn everything new, and we're getting hit left and right by things that are unexpected. So like there's a familiarity which allows us to kind of find our way in this vast world, and then as things go on, we get those little twists and turns and things start to change. So I don't, I think I had a little bit different view on that predictability part just from that perspective, that I think that it allows us to ease into things further. But you look like you're going to say something.
No. It makes sense.
Yeah. And and I think that as far as from that perspective, like again, like I think it does a good job of kind of giving us a frame of reference for everybody, because I think there is a lot going on. So we kind of we understand who Lucy is and her faction. We understand Maximus and the people, his people, and what he wants, and we understand a little bit of the ghoul. Yeah, I think that's the and it's Walton Goggins who's amazing in anything he's in. But he's definitely the one that was written the most kind of generic. It's like he is a generic kind of, it's like Western.
He's like Ed Harris,
again,
from,
bounty hunter,
Western.
Yeah,
Westworld,
exactly. He's got the badass lines, he's kind of cool. I think, as the story goes on, I think we learn more about his character, because we're also trying to figure out, so the show starts with his character in the 1950s.
Yeah.
And this is a few hundred years later. So what happened? Like, why is he and I don't know this at this point. But I understand it gets crazy the last couple episodes, but even at the point I'm at now, I don't know. But I do think that so far it does a very good job of setting things up. And then where the story goes is interesting. I think it maybe gets a little bit repetitive. I think you'll see like, Lucy is our kind of main character, and we're following her on a mission. And I think it starts to get a little repetitive in the middle of it. It drags a little bit, but I can see where I think things are heading, and I think that leaves me excited to see the last couple episodes. But overall, I think the stories, they're doing a solid job with the story and kind of bringing you into that world.
Okay.
So what are your thoughts so far on the performances? Is there a standout for you so far?
I'm just wondering if we're going to have very different views. Like I thought they were very sort of by the book, and I don't know if that's the fault of the actors or just the way that it was written. The acting was fine. I thought that it was it was good. I just thought that these characters were sort of, as you mentioned, all the same familiar, like Lucy. All right, so we know that she's a right off the bat that she's a badass, and she's gonna we know she's gonna venture out. But also, if you know even a little bit about the Fallout, the video game, so you just knew that was coming. She was probably my favorite. I thought that sometimes as the good guy lead, it's not easy to pull off without being cheesy. But I thought that she did it well. She was right between. She was right between the. She was sort of right between like a badass, but she also had a little bit of like a damsel in distress. So she was able to bring those two together. More badass, but she was not a perfect like superhero right off the bat. So I thought that was good. I guess the other guy's name is Maximus, right? I didn't really like his character. It seemed very weird, and I was annoyed by it. And the whole brotherhood thing, just in general, like to pop up with this sort of warring cult, right? It's just like to bring that in, and he I don't know, his character annoyed me a little bit. Now, did you notice the wokeism during that they included in the first episode?
yeah.
See,
that was good. I was like, good. Hey, keep doing it.
I'm just joking.
Yeah, no, I know. But I noticed that. I was like, oh, good on them. What is funny is this world is definitely more racially diverse. Like in the 50s, like it was not that diverse.
Yeah, I know. I thought the same thing. I was
yeah, it's definitely an alternate history because that was not like that. But no, so definitely, but a good on them for doing that. So I'm going to disagree a little bit. Like, I think that I like the performances. I agree and disagree, I think. So I think Lucy, who's played by, I think Elle Purnell is her name. I thought she's really good. So like, I like that she's kind of naive, right? Because if you grew up in kind of isolated, without contact with like the outside world, she plays that naivete really well. I do think, and maybe this would be more under the logic that like, yeah, she probably would have been killed pretty quickly. But it seems like somebody she's very smart, she's resourceful. So like, she's naive, but she quickly starts to figure out how to interact in that world. And you see her kind of getting, as the show goes on, again, you'll see she gets more and more annoyed, more and more angry. Not angry, but like, she starts to figure things out. And so I think that's really well done I think they do a really good job with that, with her character. But they definitely play some, there's some funny moments with, the kind of fish out of water type of deal. And yeah, Maximus, I think he is annoying. Like, his character is annoying. He does some stupid things. He makes a couple of dumb decisions throughout the show. But I'm hoping, I think obviously when you get to the predictable thing, it's kind of like the kind of the guy that, eventually he's going to become a hero, the nerdy guy who's weak and can't figure things out and is screwing up and nervous and anxious. And he's going to eventually be the guy to save the day. It looks like that's what it's building towards.
And the guy who was the cult leader, he annoyed me. Like, it was just, people don't act like that. Like, it's just so played up. It's like,
I don't know.
All right, look, I get you have to suspend your disbelief a little bit, but it's just like,
I don't know. That didn't bother me.
This realism and this thing, I don't know why that character just irked me so much. The way that the way that he spoke, but whatever. I guess that's just
I like it because I think that to me adds to this world, right? It builds this world, and they they got these, and I like the Well, I guess we'll talk about that when we get to the audio visual, but yeah, I think her performance is good. There's Maximus is good. Walton Goggins is great. I just think he's maybe given, and again, maybe we'll see more of that. I think they go more into his character as it goes on. But as the ghoul, it's a little bit one note. so far. And then there's some great guest appearances. You don't watch What We Do in the Shadows, right?
No, I haven't seen it.
Matt Berry, who's in that, is great. He's a guy like I like. You say that sometimes, but like I could listen to him read the phone book. He's got such a ridiculous, like great, funny voice. So he plays a robot in it, and then shows up, later on. But like he's awesome, and so there's some really good kind of guest appearances throughout the show that you'll see. And so I think that's also good. So I think overall, I really do like most of the performances in it. And I think they're just layered enough, and everybody's kind of giving, they're clearly giving a lot to their performances, and I think whether or not the writing. Whether or not the writing's asking for it, they're definitely giving some layered performances. Yeah. So I'm so far liking it. All right. So next up is the feels. So anything so far like in this? Are you feeling tension, anger, funny, anything, humor, like anything so far?
So I'm surprised. Wait, the feels is before audio visual? I guess it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it doesn't matter the order. Once we get to the two big ones are performances and story, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sort of indifferent to it. It's like, all right, we'll see where it goes. Like, if it can hold my interest, but I don't really feel any attachment to any character. I'm not like worried about them. I'm not losing sleep over them. I'm not like empathizing with them. So it's just the feels are indifferent right now, which I guess is the worst type of feels to have. But what about you?
I guess. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's interesting. You're so lukewarm on this so far, but it's one episode. So, although I love that first episode. So, I mean, and this kind of goes towards audiovisual. It's so violent, that some of it becomes a little bit like it's hard to watch. I do think it does a good job of like bouncing between genres, which I guess this could also kind of fit into story. But like there are some pretty funny moments. Yeah. I think when it does so far, when it has hit its like dramatic points, I think it does a very good job of that. So when it needs to shift from being very serious to funny, it does that. And when it needs to shift back, so far I think is it when we'll get to Civil War next, which I think knocks out of the park to me. With that, for reasons I'll explain, but yeah, it's not like it hasn't hit, it's not like Game of Thrones yet, but it's it's done a pretty good job so far of kind of making me feel for the characters and play around with like when it's supposed to be dramatic versus when it's supposed to be funny. So far so good, but yeah, I'm not as lukewarm as you, but it's not quite hit the super high notes yet. Although I will say that first episode, without giving away too much, like what happens in that first episode early on is a bit of a shock. Like you just don't expect it, and that's part just the violence of everything, and that they really show everything gets you. And I do think that the show, and this is maybe where it does work as far as the feels, is that as you watch it, you'll see the show uses it's both very violent visually to see, but it will do things to characters and people that you just do not expect things to happen to. And so that hits you. So I think it does, it nails a lot of those moments where you don't expect, this guy's
a little late.
And oh crap. They're, or like this thing is not going to happen. And oh, wait, they went there. So I do think the show does, kind of get those moments, and uses violence often to get there. Okay. So let's get to audiovisual. So yeah, what are your thoughts so far? Like, obviously there's a lot, clearly a big budget. What are your thoughts so far on how things look and how things sound?
Look, visual, it hits the big budget standard. Shot well. The violence is nice and graphic. The big shots, everything is good. Like no issue with that. That's exactly what you would expect. Now here's where this is the turn that I hated the music. Like I like those songs. I hated the use of it, of this sardonic, like sarcastic, even method of this juxtaposition of these old songs in this new sort of way, in this dark humorous sort of way of like playing these old standards and old country songs while in this new world. I know it's very stylized, But
Yeah.
I thought the original music was good. That was what was his name? Ramin Jahazi, right? So I thought he did.
Yeah, he's probably one of the best composers like out there
he
at this point.
did a fine job. But I just thought that it was first off, it's been done before. Which okay, we know everything's been done, but they went over the top with it. There was a different old song and a this and for every part, and it had to have this ironic sense to it, and it was this dark humor, and it was like okay, and it just like it's like this really going? Am I really going to have to deal with this for the whole duration of the show? It's like they're going to annoy me with this constant like juxtaposition of these old songs and this dark sort of like ironic dark humor. So I don't know. I did not like that part. I wish they had found a better solution of going that route. And that's really in like the makeup of the show, where they're like, we're going this route. We're going to do, and those pictures, in the beginning, I know it has that, with those, don't lose your head, with those funny slogans and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't know why it irked me so much, but it was just like, if I have to deal with this for the whole show, it's going to really be hard for me to sit through. But okay.
Yeah. Well, you're gonna have to deal with it for the whole show. Okay. We'll start with the audio. I didn't mind it. I can see where you're coming from. That it's kind of something that it's stylized and it's been done. Like it's not the first time that we've had like the music clearly opposite what we're seeing, and that contrast and. But it didn't bother me that much. You think about, okay, the world that this is in ends in the 50s, basically. So we're not going to have any more modern music than that. But I can understand your point that it's like, it's not as original as I think it thinks it is, or like the choice of songs is not as cute as it probably thinks it is, which is unfortunate, not unfortunate, but I think like, Ramin Djawadi, or however you pronounce his name, is such a good composer. And it's done. I mean, look at what he did. Like Westworld, I thought was amazing. Like, obviously, did a great job with Game of Thrones, but I think when he did introduce other songs into Westworld,
I don't know if that's him. Oh, sorry. In Westworld. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying Westworld, like the way he was able to, like the Black Hole Sun on the piano, and like all the different things he was able to do in the in that show. I think he did. It was incredible, and maybe it's not quite up to that standard. I think we were talking about that. We watched something else recently that he also composed. But yeah,
he might not be the music supervisor. I can see like that's a
maybe he's
job.
not. You're right. That's fair. Maybe he's not making those. You're right. You're absolutely right about that. So yeah, I get it with those song choices, but I'm also like, I'm fine. I do like but going back to him, I did like his score for this. Like I think he's done a really good job with the score for this. I'm totally enjoying it. And visually, I really like it visually because I think there were moments where I wasn't sure if things were practical or CGI, which is always a good thing. Like the mech, mech suits, the knight suits. Mm-hmm. That armor looks really cool, and it was like I couldn't tell a lot of times if it's practical or CGI, so that's cool. I do like the way they built out this world. Apparently, they did a very good job of keeping to what the game looked like, but very rarely did I see something and think, oh, that's very clearly CGI. So I think the visuals worked really well, and obviously, like the violence is graphic and awful and looks, it's really well done. And I think like the action scenes that we do get also are really well done. So I think so far they've done a really good job with a lot of the visuals. They're really nailing a lot of the visuals. So like audiovisual, I think for me is really good. I'm not as bothered by the music as you are, but like I said, I get that, and I feel like there was maybe a better way to work that in, to not try to appear as cute. But so I can understand that. And then lastly, we'll do internal logic and consistency. So in that first episode, did you notice things like, again, within the world were nitpicky or made you annoyed?
So so what annoyed me was sort of the way that people would act. And look, suspend your disbelief, but I just feel that it was the way that people were such characters, and the way they behaved given the circumstance, that to me was a little odd to me. I think that just I just didn't feel as if people would act in that way. Like, so they made the people in the vault very like weak and sheltered, which they were. I guess that makes sense. But and in basically the juxtaposition of the raiders that live in war and are just so used to fighting that of course it's gonna be, you know, like shooting fish in a barrel. But I just don't like, to me it was weird. Like Lucy, so she's a good fighter, right? They had to throw in a little MMA in there too, right? In the beginning, like she puts someone in an arm bar, like, so she's a good fighter, and everyone is aware of this, of what they live in. So you really think that people would be sort of that weak and that like just, you know, sheltered and frail? It seemed a little odd to me. Also the you know, in the Brotherhood, I guess that was a little bit better because it was kind of like the way that people might act in a you know in a military. But then I guess that whole scene where they brought him in and they're talking to him, it just, I don't know. It just didn't seem all that realistic. And look, once again, I always say it: you got to suspend your disbelief, but it has to make sense.
Well, that's the whole point of this like category.
And I don't know. I didn't feel like that's how
so people
would act in that.
Yeah, so that's the thing is like that's the whole point of this, like, right? It's internal logic and consistency. So we're like within the world, does this stuff make sense? You know, for the most part, I didn't run into much that, you know, really bothered me so far in this. Like, I think things, you know, they do a good job of making things kind of make sense. There's one scene in I think it's episode 6. Right, because I think I'm like halfway through episode 6. There was a scene with Maximus that made me like was like, huh, that's weird. You'll know it, I think, when you get to it. It's like, okay, I get that you're naive, but that's too naive. Like there is one scene, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, but it's like, you know, okay, that's a step above, you know, where it should be as far as him being naive. But you would, you know, and I guess maybe in that first episode, you know, the fact that the Raiders get there, you would think that there would be better protections.
That's what I was thinking.
The fact that they didn't, that was a little weird too. Like, how did they not know? Like, how are these groups not communicating? Like, because basically, like, you know, the way if you don't watch the show, it's like there are these separate vaults. Like Vault 33 is like the vault that we're introduced to, but then there's Vault 32 and whatever. I don't know how many or how few, but like, the fact that they're not regularly communicating and up to date was weird. So when the Raiders show up, it's like, oh, who are you? You know, it's like, oh, wait, what's going on here? That's a little weird. So I would say that's the big thing I ran into.
There was this one part where they said, oh, I heard that your leader, something happened to the leader of 33, right? So I guess that was their little thing of saying, oh, we thought we knew who he was. Clearly the Raiders had taken over it and were pretending to be them, right?
Yeah.
So, so I guess they showed that it was a very fast glimpse of that, but you would. And
when you get further into it, it makes less sense actually. So I'll be interested to see it. If you keep up with it. What do you think? Well, so anyway, I guess that's the next part. So obviously I've kept up with it. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm kind of excited to get to finish the show. Is this something that you're going to keep watching, or you kind of?
Well, look, I think I have to do it just to follow through. But I'm going to give so far about a 3 out of 10. Right,
oof, you're brutal with these with your scores.
What about your score?
I would not give it that low. I thought it's pretty good. So I mean, so you know, it's hard to rate at this point. I would give it, a solid 7.5, and probably could get much higher as we go on. So
all right.
So
well, I'm going to do the reveal. I'm going to do the reveal. Right.
Oh wait, I'm going to do my solo review. You want to do?
I'm going to do the reveal. I was lying about the whole thing with I was just lying about everything. So I actually, I had to make for a good discussion on this because I just didn't want us agreeing on everything. So I had to challenge it a little bit. No, I really enjoyed the first episode of Fallout. Right. I really liked the music. Really?
Wow.
I like the visuals.
No, I don't know whether
Maximus still annoyed me a little bit. There was still a few consistency things, and it was still a little predictable. But no, I enjoyed the whole thing very much.
So you're saying that the stuff annoyed you, but yeah,
it didn't really. There was a couple little things, but I just had to I just knew that we would agree on everything for the show. Yeah. So I had to I had to see if if talking down about it you would come over to my side and say, yeah, I could see that. Yeah. And no, but you held pretty strong in your views. So, but
I saw the
No, sorry, what were you saying?
No, what were you gonna say?
I was just saying it's funny. Like when you start to try to purposely find bad things, it's easy to see it and then jump to that side. But no, everything I enjoyed the show. I'm definitely going to watch it. I would give it about a 7 out
I
of
think
10.
it's like it's how you frame. Okay, good. Yeah, like it's how you frame things because if you all the things you brought up, none of it's necessarily wrong. It's just a matter of how much does that bother you. And that if it bothers you a lot, then that may color your entire view of it. So okay, I'm glad that you're gonna finish it because that way, then hopefully when I get back, you, me, and Cynic can do a quick like recap of like our thoughts on how the season ended. All right, so I'm gonna do my solo review of Civil War, and then I'll see if I can convince you to see it. So, so anyway, so Civil War, as its name implies, is a very divisive film and has been a very divisive film since it's come out. So. I think it's definitely kind of prescient, coming out like during a time where people legitimately believe we're kind of on the precipice of a war, and depending on how the election goes, I don't think I'm not that kind of pessimistic about our society so far, but who knows? Maybe I'm just being naive. But I think when we saw the trailer, and I think with the state of the world or the country as it is, and then a trailer for a movie about a civil war, I think a lot of people had the expectation that this was going to be a very like political film, and that it was going to have like its own ideology and its own statement that it's going to make on politics. And I think in that way the trailer is misleading, because I think when I saw it, and I think when you saw it, like the feeling was like, oh, this is going to be about a civil war, and then we're gonna get all this stuff about backstory on what's going on, and the film really turns out to be completely like not what I expected. And I think the trailer is very misleading on that end. So we'll start with story. So I actually gave it, and now I can give I'll give my kind of out of 2 ratings for each category, but for the story I gave it a 1.5 out of 2. So I think for me the issue with the story is as I said, it's very kind of straightforward. So instead of it being about the war and about this political situation, the story does not really give you any exposition. Like it's almost the opposite of most things. Like you don't really know why there's a war and why things are going on. All we know really is that the president has like disbanded the FBI and is has given himself a 3rd term, and we know that California and Texas weirdly have banded together to secede, and we know that there's a fight where people are fighting towards Washington to basically stop the president. But beyond that, we don't know why. And I think part of that was intentional, right? Like Texas and California being together, clearly opposite ends politically. So if they're together, like you can't pick a side. If it was Texas and Florida, we'd have an idea of the politics of this film. Or if it was New York and California, we'd have an idea. But by doing that, like, the film makes a conscious decision. Just say, we're not going to talk about why this is happening or who's right or who's wrong. We're just outside of like, it's clear like maybe the president's overstepped his bounds, but like that's it. So what the film basically is 4 journalists, and 2 of them photojournalists, basically trying to get from point A to point B or point Z, like that's the story. It's like we're following them, and I think we're seeing, they're war photographers, or at least one of them is Kirsten Dunst's character is a war photographer, and she, and she's somebody who's kind of been broken down. And I'll get a little bit more into that when I get to the performances, but somebody who's it's got to be traumatic being a war photographer. Just the horrors that you see on a day-to-day basis can't be good. And so this story really is just following these journalists as they're trying to get from point A to point B. And so there's not a very layered or deep story. There's not a lot of exposition. There's not a lot of explanation about why they're there or what they're doing. We just know that they got to get from one point to the next, and we're following them. So in that way, like, I don't think it's a bad story. I think there's nothing groundbreaking about it. And how it unfolds is fairly straightforward. But I actually give a little bit of credit to Gareth Edwards for sticking to that, for just saying, you know what, this is the story I'm going to tell. I don't need to share the background. We're going to do this story. We're going to follow them. And I appreciated that. I know a lot of people had a hard time with that, but again, like for me, I was actually totally fine with that part of the story. But again, since it's not groundbreaking, I couldn't give it the full 2 points.
So a quick question about
Yeah.
that. Are there little sort of Easter egg things in the that you see that hint at various political ideas? Like I know that the president having a third term. Like, is there anything? There could be nothing. He could have said there's absolutely nothing. Didn't even hint at it.
There are a couple of things that like the president says and just the doing the third term, but you can kind of get the idea that he's like a Trumpian type of president, without the politics. So they don't really go at all into the politics, but you get the idea that he's kind of probably modeled after Trump. To an extent. It's Nick Offerman who's great in the very, very, very limited screen time that he's got, but I would say that's probably the closest thing. But otherwise, it stays pretty. It pretty much stays neutral above that for the most part. Yeah, like we really don't get much, and I think that's a big story coming out of this movie at this point. So performances, I'm going to give that also a 1.5 out of 2, and again, I think and this goes part with the writing and the story too, is that I think the characters are generally fairly like one note, kind of two-dimensional. Like we know that they're dealing with trauma. We know that they're for a large part, like, the Kirsten Dunst's character is basically just, she's dealt with a lot of this stuff and is just holding everything in. Like she's not like, she's clearly, dealing with, found a way to kind of put things away, kind of, put all of her emotions and feelings into a closet. And I think she does a very good job of you watching that crack, and watching things, watching all of this that she's probably seen and dealt with and it's hidden away, and that start to kind of boil up and find its way to the surface. And then on the flip side, someone who's doing the opposite is I forget the actress's name, but Jessie, who's who's like a counterpart who's very young, and we watch her in her first experience with this and how traumatic it is initially, and then how she kind of hardens as the story goes on. So we see kind of two characters who are kind of going in opposite directions. So what I would say is, while I don't think the characters are written all that great. Oh, there's there's Wagner Moura. I forget. He's really good. He was in Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and he's really good in this as well. So all these characters, and then there's a couple others. I'm trying to look at my notes here. There's a bunch of good. Jesse Plemons is in it. He's really good for a moment. So like, there's a lot of really good performances in it, but they're not written all that great. So a lot of the nuance and layers that you were seeing in them, I think, is largely due to the performances of the actors in it. And again, and I'm not, I'm not going to go through not going to go through IMDb right now, or going to take a little time because my phone's acting up. But there are a lot of really good performances. So definitely, for me, I liked it. I just think that they were maybe held back slightly by the writing, but otherwise, again, 1.5 on that end for me.
Do you feel that that the writing was rushed? Do you think that there was someone who someone who said, or director just said, this isn't good enough, or do you think at some point they were like, you know what, it's good enough, let's just roll with it instead of rewriting?
No, I don't think it's that. I think because I think, like I said, I think their performances are good. Like what they bring to the table, I think is really good. And well done. It's just that I don't know that they're as far as their characters, we don't get a lot of their backstory. We don't get a lot of nuance. So I think for me, it's more just that, like, I think they brought a lot out of what I think was probably the weakest part of it was just how the characters were written. Just like I said, they're just kind of one note and very kind of, they don't really feel like fully formed people. It's kind of like they're this is what.
Why do you think they made that decision to make the characters one note, or do you think that they didn't see it as that? Like, what do you like?
I don't know. So I'll get to the next part. So I'm going to say, like, I'll say this. I'll get to the feels, and maybe this is why. So the feels, I'm giving it a 2. Because this movie is all tension, and I think that's the strength of the movie. Is, like I said, they're going from point A to point Z, and at points throughout the movie, and it gets a little repetitive, but they get to point B and point E and point J, and at each spot they get to, it's just just a ball of tension. And I think that the movie does a really good job of just really pulling you into those tense moments. And they each time it works. You know, it happens maybe one too many times, but again, each time you get to one, it's different and it works. And I think that's that's the strength of the movie to me. So I think that, you know, maybe it's just part of like, you know, I don't know if it's a blind spot or how, you know, his vision of the movie. And I'll get also when I get to audio visual, like maybe it's just that there was so much focus put on like just making these moments feel tense and powerful. And again, the visuals and the audio, like maybe that was where so much of the focus was, that we got kind of a story that's a little bit, you know, it's pretty straightforward. Again, not bad, but not groundbreaking. And again, characters that just were, again, kind of one note written, but you know, they're just there to facilitate our emotions. Maybe that's what it is. But yeah, feels, I gave it 2 because I get like, I rarely have, you know, I can't think of a movie I've been to recently that really, you know, was as, you know, gave me so many tense moments, and each one really worked and paid off. And then kind of connected to that, then we'll get to audiovisual, which I'm also giving a 2. So I think, again, this is where the movie really works is in this department. So first, I'll say the audio is phenomenal. The way that they use sound in it, I saw it in IMAX, and you know, maybe that's part of why you have to see it, but it uses sound like it's an assault on your senses, you know, whether, you know, because there's a lot, this is war. And so you get a lot of, you know, there are battles there. At some point they're just dealing with one sniper. At some point they're dealing with, you know, gun battles. At the third act, there's an assault on Washington. And at each point, it's different, but each point they use sound brilliantly, and it's like brutal, and it's an assault on your senses, and it immerses you in it in a way that very few films have gotten. I think like Oppenheimer did some really cool things with sound, but outside of that, like I can't think of anything recently that really, like, you know, I was wowed by the sound design. And then connected to that, obviously, the visuals. I thought the visuals were great, and again, one of the best as far as how the war scenes were choreographed, one of the best I've seen in a really long time. Again, there's a couple of scenes where people, you know, gun battles that are done really well. Again, there's one really well done battle where it's just like a couple of it's like snipers shooting back and forth with each other, and that one they do a great job. It's kind of funny, that particular scene. But then there's even, you know, there's other scenes where they're, again, because you're following these war photographers, they do an amazing job of putting you in there with them and immersing you with these photographers who are also part of it, but like disconnected because they're not actually fighting. And they do a good job of making you feel like you're kind of there with these photographers. But then there's this, in the third act, this assault on Washington that's brilliant. Like, again, one of the best, like as far as just action scenes, one of the best things I've seen in a long time. It's so well done. And weirdly for me, it, like, there was a bit of me that was not liking it. Like I felt weird seeing a movie where Washington is being attacked, like, was really off-putting. So again, going back to the feels, like, it works on a visual point, but I was also just like, it was unnerving for me to watch like what they were doing. Like, at one point, I think the Lincoln Memorial, I think is blown up, or it's one of that something. It's just like it's brutal to watch, and I think again they do an amazing job on that side. So like, you're really high marks. So I think for me, for the movie, I think that was it really nails the tension and just the audiovisual part. And then the last rating, which is,
I have one question about that. So now I'm already interested in seeing it. So a question that I would have had coming in is the fight scenes, the war scenes of how they would do it based on the fact that it's a civil war, that these are not all trained soldiers. It's like different than if you were to watch a classic war movie where the soldiers act in a way that you would expect, because these are regular people that have had different varied levels of training. So to me, that was a wonder if they took that into account.
Yes, there's certain parts. So definitely, like, there's certain scenes where you're watching people who are clearly not trained soldiers, fighting. And then there are a couple scenes where there are trained soldiers, and like the assault on Washington in particular is like, these are obviously trained soldiers. Like, it's not just a bunch of like random like militia members. I mean, some of them might be, but no, this is like when you're watching that, it's like, no, they got legit weapons, and it's insane. So like that is, but they do a good job of mixing things up like that. Okay. So you do get you get a scene where guys like wearing a Hawaiian shirt, you know, in a gun battle. So you do get some of that too. So I think that, you know, in that way, it definitely, they mix it up a little bit there. And then for me, with the internal logic and consistency, that one I gave it a 1.5. It mostly works. I think for me, there's a couple of like nitpicky things. I think generally, the main complaint I think a lot of people are going to have is just that we don't have enough information about what this conflict is, who's on what side. Even when I was trying to figure out what, I didn't realize like there were several factions. Like, it wasn't just Texas and California, and I'm trying to figure out like why are they, if they seceded, why are they going to Washington to kill the president? So I think that where it comes to the logic and consistency, even though I was fine with not being spoon-fed the story, I think there were a couple of things that would have, that I found online that I don't know were in the movie necessarily, and maybe would have made things clearer. So I think maybe more of a clarity thing. And the one thing I will nitpick is like, so again, they're on the road. Basically, they're going from New York to DC. The roads were way too clear, at that point. Like, if you're in this kind of dystopia where we're at war and, people are, living in, like there is one point where they're on a road that's just got cars like all over the place. But like, otherwise they just had perfectly clear roads to get from one point to the next, and that wouldn't happen. So that was a little annoying, but other than that, I didn't have much nitpicky, except that like, I think we just don't have quite enough information to like figure things out. I think there's one other thing, without giving it away, in the assault on Washington that like was a little weird. Like some decisions that people made were a little strange, but other than that, like, really not much.
Don't you think that if they gave you more backstory, then you could find things to nitpick about? Do you think that might have been a conscious choice as to why? Because the more that you have them, like, well, why wouldn't they do this? Why couldn't they solve it this way? Why wouldn't you do this? So I think that probably the way to avoid the nitpicking is to just not have that much story or not much backstory.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, for me, like the issue, I was more like, why, if these two states seceded, why would they then use all their resources to then fight inside the other states? And then you find out, oh wait, that's because so again, this might have been brought up in the movie and I just missed it, but I just feel like a little bit more information would have helped, but I'm totally fine with not giving too much. So my overall score for Civil War. So for me, my overall score was, let me just double check, 8.5. Yeah. So, which is right up there with what I would have given it, if I didn't, what I thought it was. Like, I think the movie is all tension. And I like that. Like, I don't mind, like, I didn't mind so much that, like, again, it's not the deepest story, and that, the character, because to me, it's like, I love a movie that's tension and that just is like committed to its goal, right? And like the story was like, we're going to tell this story of these photographers, and we're, what, I will say one little thing with the logic, actually, now that I'm saying it, is, so like I said, we have these two photographers who are like shifting. One is like super experienced, dead inside, and we watch her humanity come back. And then the other one, no experience, youthful ignorance, and we watch her like change into like a hardened, like soulless person, and she makes a choice at the end that really cements it, right? Which it maybe was a little predictable, but I was fine with it. When you watch it, I will say that change happened quick for both. So that was another little nitpicky thing, is you have these two people who are going the opposite directions, and to me, it was a little too fast for each one to make that change. But is what it is. Like, I'm not going to kill it too much, because obviously you only have 2 hours to tell this story, and that was the story I was going to tell. So yeah, like overall for me, like I said, 8.5. I think, it was committed to the story it wanted to tell, and where it was going to try to swing for the fences, which was, again, on the audiovisual side, and on that really just building tension and playing with that and really making you uncomfortable and making you, hitting you with gut punches when you had to. I think it does a really good job with that, and so I enjoyed it. And then it was also, it has some humor in it. It's funny, it's really funny in moments, and then it'll take you to from a point where you're like almost joyful and having fun to like the lowest point you're going to be, with visuals that just echo some of the like worst tragedies in humankind. So I think it's a movie that really it swings for it, and I think largely connects.
Okay. Well, I want to
So
watch it.
yeah, so you're gonna see it. Okay, good. All right. So yeah, maybe you can see it, and then you can give me your thoughts if you agree with my assessment. So anyway, yeah, that is it. We will be out. I will be out next week. And so we will be back in a couple weeks with some more stuff. Hopefully, we can talk a little bit about the finale of Fallout and X-Men. Are you still watching X-Men?
Oh yeah.
Okay, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
so we might have to we'll maybe do a final season review of that. But otherwise, as usual, all of our stuff is at Portable Hole Publish or let's forget it. Portable_hole for all of our stuff on social media, and portableholepub@gmail.com if you want to reach out to us, and portableholepublishing.com is the website. And so Justin, until next time.
Watch out for the hole.